Hey everybody, this is Matthew Gonzalez from No Lafey Videos, and this video is going to be a little bit more somber in tone. I'm going to try a lot less cutting, and I kind of just want to talk from an experience about Val Kilmer. Not a personal experience, but we just recently lost him, and it got me thinking about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while. And I want to talk about the last time we saw Val Kilmer in a movie, which was Top Gun Maverick. I want to talk about my experience about it. So I saw that movie in IMAX theaters, and I love that movie, by the way. Before we get further into it, I think Top Gun Maverick is probably one of the best showings of going back to an older IP and kind of doing the same playbooks but still doing it well. Also, that movie was shot beautifully and it looked great in IMAX, but that has nothing to do with the subject I want to talk about. But I want to talk about the last time we saw Val Kilmer in Top Gun Maverick. Just so everyone knows, this is a week after Val Kilmer passed away, and it kind of threw everyone for a loop. I feel like it threw everyone for a loop. It's something that we all kind of saw coming, and even though you see something coming, it's always weird when it actually does happen. But I feel like the last time we saw Top Gun, so when I was in the movie theater watching Top Gun, I didn't really pay attention to a lot of things that were going on about Top Gun. So I wanted to go in with a fresh mind state. But being in the movie theater, watching Top Gun Maverick, not really knowing much about it, it felt like a fresh experience. And I thought they did a great job putting Iceman into the story. In a lot of the movie, Val Kilmer was just seen through texts and seen through like messages between him and Maverick. And I thought that's all we were gonna get with that movie. I didn't really think that we would get to a point of actually seeing Val Kilmer. Now, I don't know if this was discussed beforehand, but anything about Top Gun Maverick, I tried not to listen to because I knew at some point I wanted to see it, and I wanted to be perfectly surprised just because of how important Top Gun was to 80s and how they're going to do this now. So I was very surprised while watching Top Gun Maverick that somewhere in the movie we actually see Val Kilmer. A lot of us see these actresses, and depending on the performance that sticks to us, I feel like they're always like that visually to us. So seeing Val Kilmer the way he was on the scene was a real shock. We all knew the sicknesses that he had, and we all knew that he wasn't in the greatest condition. But seeing him on the screen, reprising a role too, was this weird meta feeling in the movie. It was a weird meta feeling being a film goer. It's one of those times where you see a movie and you're like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. Like, it made that scene so much more special. And then when Tom Cruise or Maverick goes and sit next to him on the computer and they're talking to each other, through text, that scene sort of just felt eerie. Seeing Val Kilmer like that. I remember Val Kilmer as Batman and just Bruce Wayne being the symbol of health and fitness, right? going down to this, it was such a weird scene to watch, especially when you're seeing his partner in that scene, Tom Cruise, who is just this Dorian Gray looking dude. It was such a weird scene to go through. And it was one of those moments when you will watch it and you're like, oh, this is special filmmaking. This is a special thing that we're watching right now. But, you know, seeing Val Kilmer struggle, you know, was such an interesting experience, especially from seeing the first movie and coming back to this. So it shows how sometimes how special moments can come out through the scene. I remember sitting there in my seat in the IMAX theater and just being in awe. And Val Kilmer, you know, he didn't do much. He couldn't do much. He was a very sick man. But seeing him reprise that role and having that real life story in the background brought this emotional element to that scene that still sticks with me. So when I heard that he passed away, I immediately thought about that. You know, when I left the Top Gun Maverick screening and was driving home and thinking about that scene, I didn't really know how to take it, but it just kept on replaying in my head. Just the way he looked, and by the way, like, even with his sicknesses, I think he looked great. But you know, he definitely wasn't the man that was there in the 80s. Obviously, years have passed, so of course he's not gonna be the same person. But his scene partner being this his scene partner being Tom Cruise, with Tom Cruise just defying every sort of rule of aging. It was such a weird, special scene that makes me love cinema and makes me love films. A thing that shows that movies are truly timeless. You know, one of the biggest things about that scene was when he spoke. His voice was AI generated, so it wasn't even his voice. He still needed assistance to speak. That's how far his sicknesses took his health.
The Navy needs Maverick. The kid needs Maverick. That's why I fought for you. That's why you're still here.
But I think about that scene a lot. And I think about not putting people's sicknesses into movies. That's not the point. But just how beautiful movies can be. Now, Val Kilmer might always just be Batman to me, or the guy from Willow, but I'll definitely remember that scene. And that scene now just will stick out probably for the rest of my life when I revisit Top Gun Maverick. We've lost a lot of good filmmakers, good actors too. I do want to make another video about another filmmaker that we recently lost, but I'm kind of trying to figure out how to do that. But this was just something that I kind of wanted to get off my head and talk about. Like and subscribe, you know, watch another video. Kind of want to just talk about Val Kilmer and that scene from Top Gun and my experience from seeing that scene and the events that happened last week with him passing. Thank you, everyone. and be good to each other. Rest in peace, Val Kimer.